shall I go? What shall I do?
Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn. What a fool you are.
Behave yourselves!
Hello YouTubers out there, this is Jerry Saravia at the movies. So, I want to briefly talk about the AMC movie theater chain. Now, I live out in Maryland, so this was the main theater chain that I've been to for the last, well, I guess roughly 17 years that I've been living out here in Baltimore, Maryland. And there used to be a smaller theater called the Horizon Cinemas that they got rid of. It showed discount movies. And I've never actually been to it, and then they closed it down. So just when I was thinking about it, because they started running first run movies, not anything that already had been playing for a while, and then they shifted it over there. So that didn't work out. But the AMC movie theater, I mean, I enjoy going there. I don't have an issue with that. My issue, though, is it used to be that back in the day, and many of you will know this, particularly in the 1980s, and sometime after that to some degree, if you were late to a movie, that's it. You missed at least the first few minutes. That's just the way it was. So you had to be on time, because generally speaking, they would, if I remember correctly, if a film was starting at 2 o'clock, let's say, you were watching a matinee, more than likely they started already running a couple of trailers, and they would run 2 or 3 trailers at the time, that was it, before 2 o'clock. So you had to be there at 2. The movie would start at 2. But that's back in the day. Now, you can't really be late to a movie anymore, because what happens is a movie, they'll say that the film starts at 2 o'clock, but actually it won't start till about 2:25, because they run a bunch of commercials. And then there's these this program called Movies, where you have this woman, I forget her name, Maria Menounos, I think, and she interviews certain movie stars, and you have that. Then you have a film critic on there who discusses certain movies that are coming out soon. And then you have a bunch of commercials. And then you get to the trailers, and the trailers are just one too many for many movies that probably you're not going to be very interested in seeing in the first place. Some maybe, but most of them not. And the interesting thing is that back in the day, like if you had a film that was a Paramount release, Paramount Pictures or TriStar Pictures or Warner Brothers, MGM, the list goes on, of course, they would show trailers for other studio efforts for that same studio. So you would see, if you saw an MGM release, you saw a bunch of trailers for MGM. And not even a whole bunch, really. You would see maybe 3 or 4 tops. This was back in the 80s. Later on in the 90s, you saw really a lot more trailers, but nowadays you're seeing about, I don't know, I guess it's about 7 or 8. It just seems one too many compared to back in the day. In addition, like I said, to all the commercials, and then local advertisements for a theater in town, and I mean, nothing wrong with that, but it takes forever. And then the lights really dim, and then you're in darkness, and then you see Nicole Kidman pushing AMC, as if that's really necessary. But I think that was done during the COVID era to get people to go back to the theater. So my feeling is, they say that a lot of movie theaters, they really make their money at the concession stand. I think that's only partially true. Really, you want an audience to see a movie too. I mean, they're not there just to buy popcorn and a drink and then split. They're going to take it into the movie. And AMC, the matinee prices are roughly, first showing, sometimes they have like 30% off, so you're seeing a movie for $9.75, which I guess is about right, because I remember back in the day in New York City, if you saw a movie first run, I remember I saw in New York City Misery. That's 33 years ago, and those were $10. So, you know, I guess $9.75 isn't bad. Of course, I remember a time when I saw The Natural in 1984, first run. A matinee was $2, but that was at my local theater. And that was really virtually a stone throw away. It was right around the corner. So my feeling is that AMC is really making their money by showing all these commercials, and not necessarily the trailers, but the commercials. So they got to cut down on that. Please get rid of the commercials. This is not like back in the day in the 1940s or 50s, where they would run before they ran a movie, they would show an animated short, and then they would show Wonders of the World or whatever it was called, and then news around the world and this sort of thing. So you had a little time, but they usually ran that stuff just, if I'm not mistaken, just before the start of the movie. So once again, it would be before. If it was a 2 o'clock showing, it would be before 2 o'clock, not at 2 o'clock. They really wanted people to make it to the theater on time, because there was a time, if some of you may recall, about Alfred Hitchcock with Psycho, that he didn't allow anyone to go see the movie after it had already started. You weren't allowed. You had to wait for the next show, because his feeling was if people were late, they would think that Janet Leigh was not in the movie. And if you've seen Psycho, you know what I'm talking about. So cut down on commercials. You don't need so many commercials, but it makes me think that perhaps they need to run commercials in order to support these movie screenings. But it's not because of COVID, because prior to COVID, we've seen commercials before at AMC. So this has to stop. I mean, enough of the commercials. And don't show so many trailers. People don't really want to sit there watching one trailer after another. 2 or 3, maybe. That's it. Beyond that, you know, people can also, I mean, I like seeing trailers at the movies, but a lot of them are very choppy and not very well done. It's not like back in the day when you had teasers. Teasers were something else. But now they pretty much show, for the most part, full-length trailers. So cut down on a number of trailers, cut down on a number of commercials, and, you know, because before the movie even starts, most of the people will have finished their popcorn and drink, and then it's like, okay, and now you got to entertain me with this movie. So, there's that. The other issue is, I was going to bring up after I saw Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Now, just to keep track, this year I didn't go to the movies that much. I really don't go very often. I'm trying to go more often. Sometimes when I want to see a film, which is another issue, it's gone from the theater that I want to see it at, and then I have to go much further away, and I can't always do that because, you know, I work 6 days a week. So, like, for example, Asteroid City is doing pretty well. That's a Wes Anderson flick that just opened 2 weeks ago. It's doing well for you know, a smaller budgeted movie, and it's already out of AMC. They took it out of there to make room for Mission Impossible and the 10 screens that's going to be showing on. But so this year, for example, I saw A Man Called Otto, just earlier this year, and I saw Master Gardener and Blackberry, and now Indiana Jones. Now, I noticed that with Indiana Jones and with other screenings of films, it seems to me they are saving on electricity. Now, this is nothing new. So the lamps that they have behind the screen, or wherever it is that they control the brightness, are being dimmed a little bit. So in the opening sequence of Indiana Jones, which is set mostly at night on top of a train, it looked darker than it really should. And I knew it did when I was watching it, because when I saw it, the clips online, they were certainly lighter, and you could see the detail. And here, I was missing some of the detail, and that was rather unfortunate. Whereas daylight scenes looked just fine. But anything at night seemed extremely dimmer than it should have been. Now, they have always been doing this, to the point that back in the day, director Stanley Kubrick used to have his aides go to several different movie theaters and check the brightness by using a light meter to make sure that the lights were not being dimmed. You talk about somebody that was keeping track of everything. That was Stanley Kubrick from his home in England, in a theater that was, let's say, the Golden Ring Cinema, for example, out here in, when it did exist in Baltimore, which showed The Shining 43 years ago now. So that is another issue sometimes I've noticed, because it's all digital projection now anyway, which doesn't feel right to me, but that's just how it is. As many films are shot on high definition video, and that's what we should call it. It's HD video, or 4K, whatever you want to call it, it's video. So even Indiana Jones wasn't shot on film. So I guess my issue is, I wish they would present these films properly. Now, it's not all theaters. Some people that I've talked to who see movies generally throughout the year, they've noticed that with Indiana Jones, at the theater that they saw it in, the brightness level was just right. They could make out all the detail during that opening. I remember one time I saw Jurassic Park 3, which back in 2001, and the theater was rather low rent, and I went with my father and my brother and my mother for whatever reason. That was the movie we chose to see, and the whole film was projected much darker than it should have been. And then when I checked it out on video just to see, I noticed that in that case, actually some of the scenes were a little darker than they should have been anyway. It wasn't photographed the right way, unless maybe DVD or Blu-ray looks better. I'm not planning to look at it. I hate that movie anyway. So, but these things do happen. So AMC, make sure, please, give it a shot. Project these films with the right brightness level that's intended. Less commercials, less trailers. Perhaps people will enjoy going to movies more often if you have less of that, because believe me, that is an issue. I'm sure of it. So, the only benefit, of course, is that you can never really be late to a movie, because if it says it starts at 2, it ain't starting until about 2:30. That's just how it is. So those are my thoughts on it. What are yours? Do you go to movies very often? Have you been to AMC theater chains? What issues have you noticed? Do you think there are too many commercials? Or maybe you enjoy seeing a lot of commercials that you would see on TV. Or maybe you don't watch TV, in which case then that's a whole other issue. Are there too many trailers? And those are the issues that I see with AMC. So let me your thoughts, and if you like what you hear, please subscribe to my channel and hit the link for that bell notifications of any new uploads. And I guess that's all I got to say about that. And this is Jerry Saravia at the Movies, signing off.